I dropped out of high school when I was just turning 17. I had this dream that I was going to open my own cafe. I hated my boss, and I had this plan to open a cafe that would be like just so, where everything would be like the way that I thought that my boss should be running his place. And literally 10 years went by. I hadn't saved a dime. I conceived this plan to open a small bar, sell it real quick, and that way I'd get the money for my cafe. So I'm working at this bar, and I have this plan. When I'm 30, I'll open a bar. So I'm reading the Village Voice. It says, commercial space, $800 a month. And I say, wow, I mean, that was low even for back then. Even it was low for the Lower East Side. I said, wow, at $800 a month, I could open up my bar like this year instead of waiting till I'm 30. And I went to go look at the place, and it was in a pretty dodgy neighborhood. And the guy who comes down to show me the space is a kid I haven't seen since I was like 13 years old. A childhood friend, essentially. They never ever would have rented, they wouldn't have rented a stranger. No one voluntarily rents a space to a bar in a building that they live in. They trusted me to open a cocktail bar, but on the condition that it would be totally silent. It wouldn't be like a regular bar. No one would know we were there. And so in service of, not making any noise, we did a hidden entrance and soundproofed the hell out of it, and kind of had all these rules about don't be too loud and be quiet on your way out and stuff. Many people since then I think have done speakeasies for less pure reasons. Like people think it's like a way to generate buzz and bring business. But I mean we did what we did because that was the only way we were going to actually have a business. The era of Prohibition, the 20s, early 30s, was the peak in a lot of ways. It was like the peak of menswear, certainly, the peak of music, the peak of cocktails, of course. I mean, not in any way trying to go back to the past. I simply think that the 21st century is going to look an awful lot like the 1920s. If you're making cocktails at home, there's three important things to remember. The first thing, and the most important thing, the very first thing that Dale DeGroff ever taught me, is put the ice in last. Measure your ingredients first, and the ice and the cocktail should come together right before shaking. This allows you to correct for any mistakes you may have made during measuring, but most importantly, gives you a drink that didn't get watered down before you even started the shaking process. The second thing is citrus. Citrus juice goes bad straight away. The minute it touches oxygen, it starts to go off. And so ideally, you're gonna cut open the fruit right before you make the drink. Failing that, you make a pitcher, say, of lime juice and try to use it up in like 15 minutes or so. The last thing, and some people would say this is the key, is the ice. In your home, in your freezer, you can make better ice than they use at 99% of the cocktail bars around. Step one, clean your freezer well. Ice takes on the flavor of food, just like cheese does. Step two, take a bread pan or anything like that, put 2 inches of water in it, filtered water, freeze it, and you'll end up with a block. Take an ice pick and cut yourself an appropriate size cube for the thing you're doing. It's usually going to be just one thing. Whiskey on the rocks or shaking a daiquiri. All these things can be done not with several ice cubes, but just one nice rock of ice. And do it like that, and honestly, you can make better drinks in your kitchen than 99% of the bars out there. This is the bee's knees cocktail. We're going to start with 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. If you're making one drink for yourself at home, it's always best to cut the fruit right before you make the drink. And you can simply do what I'm doing here and squeeze it by hand. If you're making multiple drinks for a cocktail party or anything like that, it's a good idea to squeeze a pitcher beforehand. But remember, the juice will change flavor dramatically, if not go bad, in 15 minutes. Don't worry about any seeds that may come out. The strainer will get them after the shake. Following that with 3/4 of an ounce of honey syrup. This is honey syrup, 3-to-1 honey to hot water. You simply take, say, 9 ounces of honey, add 3 ounces of hot water, shake it very, very well. It will stay in solution. In fact, honey doesn't need to be refrigerated. They found honey in the tombs of the pharaohs. All right, 2 ounces of gin. And this cocktail was big in Prohibition. The bee's knees was a slang phrase of the time. It meant pretty much the best that it can be. It was a Right up there with cat's meow and cat's pajamas as a cool thing to say back then. I'm gonna now shake this with a single rock. With ice straight from the freezer, it's a good idea to give it a sec for the two things to come together in temperature. Roll it, as they say. And that's the bee's knees. Cheers.